What is the best movie of 2021 so far? Is it Promising Young Woman, Nomadland, or Judas and the Black Messiah? It's time to find out on the screen test.
Sometimes the best picture really is the best picture.
I am not a fan.
Conflict this early on?
That this is giving me more anxiety towards the situation.
Before we start this episode, quick spoiler alert, we're going to be discussing all things from these movies, so if you haven't seen them, go watch them and come back, or if you don't care, keep watching. I'm not your dad, do what you want. Hello, and welcome to The Screen Test with me, your favourite filmmaker boy, Jack Howard, and I'm joined as always by the chief film critic at The Independent, Clarisse Loughrey.
Hello.
1/3 of the Cyber Nerds, Joe Ikhinwmin.
What's good?
And this week, our guest is podcaster and film writer Anna Bogutskaya.
Hello.
So we're about halfway through the year, which is terrifying. And there's been some great movies that have been released so far, some of which are available to watch on Prime Video right now, including the Oscar-winning Sound of Metal.
I can't even hear you. Do you understand me? I can't. I'm deaf. I'm deaf.
Time loop comedy Palm Springs, and Borat 2, which was better than anyone expected it to be. So I thought it was time to decide which film is the best of the year so far. And Anna, we'll start with you since you're the guest.
Mine is going to be Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman.
Okay, Joe, what are you bringing to the table?
Mine is Shaka King's biopic about William O'Neill, Judas and the Black Messiah.
And Clarisse?
Like I just went for the boring choice and the obvious one, but I picked this year's Best Picture winner, Nomadland. But
So-
it is the best picture. It
So
is.
boring as a choice that even the Oscars didn't put it last, because everyone knew it was going to happen. They were like, let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
But it's a great film. I don't want to just say I don't think it's a boring choice at all, actually, because I think it is undeniably incredible.
Sometimes the best picture really is the best picture.
Okay. Well, what does everybody feel about each other's picks? Are we all generally fans of all the movies? What are we feeling?
I really enjoyed Promising Young Woman, and I really thought that Nomadland was boring.
Okay.
It's going to be difficult because I think all three of our picks are genuinely excellent, amazing films.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
have to
agree.
be honest. I am not a fan of Promising Young Woman. But
Conflict this
Dun,
early
dun,
on?
dun.
I know
my God.
that, Anna, you've got an entire podcast dedicated to it, and you clearly have really fallen in love with this movie, and I'm excited to hear about your perspective on it, because I think my feelings purely are more like from a technical filmmaking point of view. It feels like this is very much someone's first movie, and I think some of the technical way that the film is made didn't help me invest in what was going on. It was sort of some of the way it was shot and blocks, like some more like filmmaking type of things that were distracting me from the core of the story, to be honest. So I'm excited about your perspective on it.
It's interesting to hear, but all I'm hearing is that you don't like pink.
Okay, let's get into the first round, which is cast, and we'll start with Anna and the cast of Promising Young Woman. What do you think about Carey Mulligan?
Okay, so I actually want to say that it's genius on two levels. On the one hand, it's Carey Mulligan, obviously an incredible performer, very established already. We've never really seen her in this kind of violent role, in this very genre-y world. She's much more known as a dramatic actress, as a period piece actress. She's also very deliberately avoided being typecast, but no one was expecting her to go this intense and this angry. But actually, I want to talk about the genius of metacasting in Promising Young Woman, which is actually not Carey, who, I could go on about how amazing and her performance is, but it's actually the guys that I think work so well in Promising Young Woman. And there's very deliberate casting of romantic and comedic actors into these incredibly damaging, really toxic, really kind of quietly menacing roles of, the nice guy, and they're never the nice guy. They're disgusting.
It feels like who McLovin grew up to be.
Yes. And you've got the fake Schmidt, we call him like that on my Promising Young podcast, where you can't take away the lovable, geeky, romantic leads roles that we associate with Christopher Mintz-Plasse, with Bo Burnham, with Adam Brody, and then seeing them in these really, really menacing roles is so jarring. And that's kind of one of the powerful things about the film, that you see these characters that are engaging with Cassie, with Carey Mulligan's character, and you don't expect them to behave in that way, to be menacing, to be potentially rapists, to be potentially abusers. And they are, and they behave in this really terrible ways, and they're called out for it by her character. And it really calls us out as well as an audience, because we're so used to seeing them in these really fluffy roles, and all the narratives that unfold in the film really fit within the structure of romantic comedies, of comedies in general. And, even the character of Seth Cohen by Adam Brody, it's essentially a parody of a type of nice film boy that he helped create through his character of Seth in the OC. And seeing them as these menacing figures kind of hiding in plain sight becomes so effective, because it's playing with our own audience and industry expectations of who these actors are supposed to play, so much more than our expectations of who Carey Mulligan is allowed to play.
I wanted to just build on that as well, to say with Bo Burnham's casting, I think was absolutely so devastating to me, because I have loved his work since he was doing comedy. I have always looked up to him as one of the nice guys. And so
you feel personally betrayed by him.
Well, yeah. And it really ties into this idea that, you don't want it to be true. You desperately don't want it to be true. And the crushing part of Promising Young Woman is having to realize that how men present themselves is not always who they are. And that's the really, really heartbreaking part of that film. And I think his casting in particular is just whoa.
To go back to Carey Mulligan, her physical performance in this film is both so contained and so on the edge at all times. You can literally feel through the screen that her character could snap at any moment. Mm-hmm. And there's one moment in particular where she snaps towards the end of the film and she yells. There's only one time where she yells throughout the whole movie. She's very aggressive, very, damning, very scathing in her dialogue and how she talks to people. She's very, prickly at all times, but at the end there's one moment where she yells, and that's where she snaps. And it's heartbreaking, and it's also really scary to see, because you can tell through that the buildup of the whole film is she's so tightly wound. And seeing that on screen and portraying that on screen and still being so intensely watchable and so intensely empathetic towards a character that's basically on the brink of a breakdown from just sheer rage and arrested development the entire film. I think it's quite a feat especially for actresses, for female performers, to portray a character who's very, very clearly not handled trauma in a positive or productive or acceptable way. To watch that and to both be entertained and moved and deeply angered by that performance and by that film, I think is a staggering achievement.
I totally agree with everything you're saying, and incredibly well argued. I want to just bring in a bit of criticism that I had, which was the casting of Laverne Cox, which I thought was a bit of a waste and felt a little bit like a non-character, and I thought that was a little bit disappointing. How do you feel about that?
I kind of have to agree. I think Laverne Cox is such an amazing, charismatic performer. I wish they would have given her a bit more to do, a bit more of a character, but I could actually argue the same for, I know I'm arguing against my own pick, but also Jennifer Coolidge and Clancy Brown, who play Cassie's parents in the film. There could also be always a little bit more from the supporting characters, but I think the whole point is that
it isn't there.
It's about
film.
her.
It's about her. Yeah.
Everyone else is very much a supporting character in her story.
Okay, let's move on to Judas and the Black Messiah, and we have an Academy Award winner and BAFTA award-winning performance in this.
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya comes out and he delivers, I would say, a really inspiring performance. I really like what he does in this movie because he is so he knows what he wants, and he delivers Frank Hampton's vision and so well that like he's just a likable character. Like you just believe in him. He spends the movie uniting people that shouldn't be united, with where he's talking to, where he brings in the Hispanic gang locals, and then even some white Southerners together. Like he's uniting people who are all being like pushed down by the system, and he just delivers it in such a great way, and I really like just appreciate that. And then that goes against Lakeith Stanfield, who's playing a conflicted character who's being used by the government. I think what Daniel Kaluuya does is really great, but I feel like it's made even better by Lakeith's performance, where no matter what he does, while he's making these decisions and while you're looking at him and he's talking to you, you know he's lying, but when you look into his eyes, you can see there's conflict, and that like he actually does like Frank Hampton, and like there's so many emotions in there.
It feels like he doesn't really know what he's getting himself into.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things to me that's crazy. But then when you look at the real life situation of what happened and how young they are, like Frank Hampton was only 21 when he passed away, and William O'Neill was 19. It's like he's doing something that is atrocious, really, but at the same time, he's a 19-year-old kid that is in over his head and now is pretty much being blackmailed into making wrong decisions. And I feel like they really make you feel for him, and I feel like it was so conflicting for me because like I hate the character, but then at the same time there's a part of me that's like almost understanding that he feels that he's got no other way out of this whole scenario.
He clearly admires like the finer things in life and wants to be able to give himself a better chance in the world.
See, and I think with that, it's not necessarily him trying to get want the finer things, but he understands that if he's going to go down this path and betray his people, he then needs to elevate to a scenario where he's not actually around them. And that's why presenting him with financial gain, making him feel like, oh, you could be on our side, and they're not living the same as Frank Hampton and them. That's how I translate the, okay, if I do this, you have to give me even more money. Like he always wants more money because he knows he believes the more money he will get, the further removed he can be from the situation after it all blows up, which obviously is wrong because you can't run away from yourself. And that's something that he ends up not being able to live with. I also think Dominique Fishback was amazing. I feel like she's actually like the intimate heart and soul of the movie, where it's like Frank Hampton is on a mission to unite the world and unite all of these people. And that is such a grand mission and gesture. But whenever it's them two together, it's like they're the only two people here. And she's trying to, it's hard because she's loving him and he's trying to be selfless and give his life to the cause. And it's such an interesting dynamic. And even the scenes where she's not speaking or doesn't have dialogue, like you just still always feel her presence. And I thought like that was just an amazing performance by her. Like the three of them together, I feel like it's just so satisfying watching that from these actors. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I also want to just point out that Jesse Plemons, who's been cast in so much stuff lately, he seems to be like the go-to for a versatile amount of roles, but always a sort of slightly off character. Like always something kind of slightly weird or creepy about him.
He's a perfect dodgy character.
He's perfectly dodgy all the time, and he can go really, really funny, like in Game Night, and overly creepy, or he can go slightly weird, like he does in Black Mirror, or like he does in this. And I think he's an unsung hero, I think, in Hollywood right now. He's being cast by everybody, and he always just knocks it out of the park. And I think he doesn't ever steal the show, which I like. He's happy to play his part. Let's move on to Nomadland, because this has got obviously he's got an incredible central performance, but there's a very interesting supporting cast as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the whole thing with Chloe Zhao is her films before have been sort of semi-documentary, fictionalized versions of basically taking real people and allowing them to present a fictionalized version of their own stories, like in The Rider and songs that my brothers taught me. And here she kind of goes, right, well, I'm going to start with that basis. And she drew from many of the real life characters featured in Jessica Bruder's book, Nomadland. Linda May, Swanky, Bob Wells, these are all real people. She said, come be in my film. I want you. She was very, what I really loved about it is she told these people, like, I want you to be able to tell your own story. It's not necessarily just like play yourself and we got to be authentic, like we got to make it as real as possible. It's more like, I want you to present yourself as you want to be seen and tell your story as you want to tell it, which I find really beautiful. And then to put in the middle of that, you've just got Frances McDormand, who just forever amazing in all things, wonderful. And what's so interesting about her part is that, yes, it is a fictional character, but she's also kind of just playing Frances McDormand within that environment. The character is named Fern, and the last name, we never hear the full last name, but it's Mick D something.
Right.
So it's pretty much Frances McDormand.
It's as close as you can get.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see her sort of go, right, let me place myself in this environment. Let me connect to these people as I, Frances McDormand, would connect to these people and sort of like melt into the environment. And that's what I find so beautiful about her performance, is that like she has no sort of, there's no vanity about it. I'm not just talking about the fact like, oh, she's not wearing makeup, da da da. It's like she has no pretensions about what acting should be. Like, you gotta do that, you gotta do the method thing, you gotta prepare and research. She's just like, I am gonna live the spirit of this character and I'm just gonna be Fern and I'm gonna exist as Fern.
That's it. Is it this like weird blur where you're not sure where Frances McDormand starts and Fern ends, and with the supporting cast as well, I'm not sure what's scripted and what isn't. And like I the first time watching it, when I saw it at the London Film Festival, assumed maybe Swanky had died during the making of the film. And it doesn't bother me that she hadn't, obviously. I'm so glad that she hasn't. But what I mean is that like it didn't feel like I was being lied to. Like, it felt like the documentary elements and the fictional elements were so well blurred that it just helped me invest in it so much more.
Yeah, and I think that's because she's not making this big thing of like authenticity.
Yeah.
I kind of hate when filmmakers do that. Like, this is so this is so real, man. She's just like, I want to capture the spirit, the emotions, the feeling of it. Like, that's what's important to her. And I think that is what makes her such a brilliant filmmaker. We can get onto that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we are picking 3 of the best, most well-received movies that have come out in the last year. So this is a very, very difficult thing to choose from. But I think I am going to give top marks to Judas and the Black Messiah. I found those performances the most compelling. And then I think I'm going to go to Nomadland and then Promising Young Woman. Personally.
It's the pink.
It's the pink, man. I'm not into it. Okay, so at the end of that round, Judas and the Black Messiah has 3 points, Nomadland has 2 points, and Promising Young Woman has 1 point. Let's go on to memorable scene then, and we'll go back to Promising Young Woman. What are some of the standout moments for you across the film, and why? What is it about the way that those scenes play out that stick in your mind?
I'm going to pick out the first and the penultimate scene.
Okay.
Penultimate main scene of the film. So the first scene, we open in this sort of club, like a really dingy after work kind of lame club. And it opens with these quite close-up shots, basically, of men dancing badly to the song Boys. And it's just reeks of after work drink vibes. Then there's the shot of Carrie's character, Cassie, just kind of slumped, drunk, in kind of, very simple office attire, in this sort of, completely spread out over on a sofa by herself, extremely drunk. And it's such kind of a weirdly violent scene because she's framed both as an avenging angel in so many ways, and that's how the movie was marketed and presented to us. So we're already going in knowing like, well, she's not going to be the victim because she's the protagonist. We've seen the trailer. This is all going to be about her avenging something. But then we're looking at her through the eyes of Adam Brody's character, of these leery, lecherous men. So you're seeing her in danger, and it's really striking as a scene for an audience member, because you're both afraid for her and kind of titillated, because you're like, oh, what are you going to do? How are you going to kill them? You know, what's going to be the situation here? Because it's setting us up for danger while also tapping into these very candy colored poppy disco aesthetics that make it so much more conflicting. And then my other absolutely top favorite scene, which again plays on this dichotomy between the look and feel of the movie, which is very pop, very millennial, extremely millennial pink, very candy colored, is when she is kind of going on her final mission, and she's dressed her up in
full Harley
effectively,
Quinn
like,
mode.
yeah, like in this weird nurse's disguise, and she's posing as a stripper, and she has this like candy colored wig and extreme makeup, and there's this orchestral version of Britney Spears' Toxic playing, which is so good. And it's so scary, like it pierces you to the heart, because it's like, this is not Britney, this is some funeral music, this is some going into battle music. And it's also, again, the danger of her. You're kind of with her. You're just like, come on, like, absolutely blow something up, Carrie. Do it for all of us. But you're also afraid for her. You're like, you're putting yourself in danger. You're so vulnerable as well. Both of those scenes are so provocative and so intense. Like, I was like sick to my stomach watching those scenes, but also wanting to see more of it.
Joe, we're going to talk about Judas and the Black Messiah now.
Yeah, my most memorable scenes, I'm going to go with, there's two that really stand out to me that I wouldn't say I enjoyed, but like they just burned into my head. One is when Jesse Plemons' character is talking to his FBI boss about the whole situation, everything that's going on. And then, you know, his FBI boss just pretty much asks, like, says that they're fighting for their future and for their way of life, and like, just, and it's even tough for me to like say, because I feel like it's so crazy, and I know how I felt watching it, but I know there's probably people out there who watching this and feel the opposite to me, and I feel like that was the part of it that like it just burned that scene into
How did it make you feel?
I mean, it made me feel like it just made me feel like terrible. Like some people think having, don't know, a black person in their family or come home with their daughter or be involved in their life is the worst thing in the world. Do you know what I'm saying? And that this is an organization that governs a country. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just that to me is obviously, it's crazy. Like, it's heartbreaking. It's all of these things. But then, like, that I can deal with and understand through life anyway. But the thought of the reverse of it, like that people in that scene, there are people in that scene potentially rooting for them in that moment. I felt like that was just fucked. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So the other one is the actual assassination where the police go in, you know, they raid the Black Panther Party house, 99 bullets are shot. Only one came from a Black Panther's gun, which was a reaction to being shot by the security guard. And it's just like, I feel like both of these scenes are like just so heavily connected to me that there are people out there who believe they're just doing their job, in police officers or whatever, and have been told to do this. And the victims, like there's no fighting back. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is, I don't want to say it's like a fight that can't be won, but there's so many things against them in that scenario, and there's not much they can do. Even with weapons, only one bullet was fired. Like, and it's just crazy to me. Like, it's such a tough scenes to watch. But I also, like I said again, I appreciate Shaka King for putting this into the movie and visualizing it for those people who need this kind of, like, just something to open their eyes. And I know it's not like a documentary, but so many of these things are taken from the actual events. And I feel like it's something that people should see. And if it's a movie that you're thinking about watching, like, you should definitely watch it, you know? And I just think the whole movie stuck with me, or is still with me now. And I don't usually get like so emotionally tied up in movies, but this one like really got to me differently. And these scenes were some of the worst.
I mean, I completely agree, and it's especially feels very relevant because of the year. And it was accidentally relevant. The fact that all the things that happened with the Black Lives Matter movement last year synced up with the release of this, just to be like, just to drive the point home.
It's tough because, like, yeah, there's the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's very relevant to everyone today. But regardless of whether that movement happened last year or not, these events are going on. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like people should just educate themselves on the situation and do what they can, because doing nothing is supporting it.
One small thing I wanted to add is about Judas and the Black Messiah. What I love so much about Shaka King's filmmaking is like the whole film kind of comes in the mold of a traditional biopic. Like, it works through certain structures. You're like, okay, I recognize this film, but it's really still embracing, like, Fred Hampton had very radical, like, community-based politics, and he was so much about, you know, feeding kids, like, spreading education. Like, his politics were, there was so much to them that I think the film couldn't necessarily all put into sort of one storyline, but I love that it created a starting point. Like, as you said, it's such a powerful educational tool to be like, watch this movie and then go read about his life, because what you see in the film is only the start of what he did, and he did so much profound and important work for his community that, like, that's where I really go, oh wow, like, the power of film. Like, it really can educate people and open doors and show people, like, what things can be.
If I can echo both Joe and Clarisse, one of the amazing things about Judas and the Black Messiah is how it shows how history is rewritten for political purposes, and how, you know, Joe mentioned the 99 how many of our bullets was it? 99
bullets
99 bullets, and only one of them fired by a member of the Black Panther community. Like, the way that then those facts are then rewritten and presented, and
that's
going down in history, that's how then things get erased and remembered. And it's films like this, not to be all like the power of cinema, but these stories and the way that they're told matter, because showing both Chairman Fred Hampton's work and his politics, and not just his life and all of that, but the way that then that narrative was shifted, you know, like, oh, he's going to jail, and then we immediately see, oh, they just needed to put him in jail for whatever reason, so you make up a reason. And it's the showing, Shaka King showing the behind the scenes, the conniving, the politicking that goes on behind closed doors, and then the things that are presented to the public, and the dissonance between them is one of the biggest achievements of Judas and the Black Messiah.
All right, let's move on to Nomadland.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick out a memorable scene, because Nomadland is really about moments rather than scenes. And what really stands out to me is certain shots, certain, like, very small lines of dialogue, like a shared look between Fern and another member of the Nomad community. I mean, my favorite shot is kind of the one that you see a lot. It's her walking along the plains to her trailer, to her caravan, and you see the sunset, and it's all these pinks and purples, and she's holding the lantern as she glows up, and it's kind of ethereal and it's mysterious. And one of the reasons that I think really, like, emotionally connected to this film is that I grew up in Arizona, and so that image, that moment, those colors, that dusk is so familiar to me. And it's not necessarily in a nostalgic way, because I think what's very important about Nomadland is that she doesn't romanticize it. I think she finds beauty within it, without simplifying their lives, without simplifying the fact that these people are suffering. Like, these people are, you know, it really breaks my heart to think that characters like Fern, there are so many people in America right now who are just one bad day away from living Fern's life. And yes, she finds so much pride in it because, like, you make the best of it. But, like, this isn't the life that she imagined for herself. She wanted to be with her husband in Gypsum. She wanted to be in that community. She has so many beautiful memories of living there and her home and her family and everything. It's not about romanticizing it. It's not about, like, turning these people into, like, little, oh, look, it's so cute, like the van life, hashtag van life. It's about, like, to me, it's about kind of like human resilience.
Yeah.
That the fact that she can make this life for herself and she can reconnect with nature. I love the scene where she's bathing in the river naked and she's so serene and she finds this incredible moment of peace in all of this. Like, it is really a testament to humanity to me, and I think that's what really moves me about Nomadland. And I think there's a really interesting line where she goes to visit her sister, and her sister remarks that, oh, you're kind of like the American pioneers, right? Because you're nomads, you're traveling across America. And to me, she's totally wrong because the point is that, you know, the pioneers, they were going to find America. They were traveling to establish America, to discover it. And I feel like these characters are very much trying to escape it. Like, the whole film is about America has failed these people. Yeah, that's why it's really hard to pick just like, oh, this is the memorable scene, because it's something that builds up slowly with, like, every little interaction. And, like, I love when she's working at the Badlands park and she's joking around with the other woman going, yeah, we're the Badlands bitches. And it's just such a, like, sweet...
Just like a random little bit when they've got cucumbers on their eyes,
and
or they're just having a little face mask. Yeah.
And that doesn't seem like... I know compared to these other two movies, it doesn't really seem like anything.
But when it's a part of a whole...
Yeah, that's the thing. It's about building those moments up and up and up. And by the end of it, you just get such a sense of who she is, what she wants, what she's grieving, what she's running away from. And I think that it's the kind of movie that really hits you when the credits run, when you're like, oh, okay, I understand what I've just experienced now.
That docudrama line that Chloe Zhao walks between in her cinema is kind of is operating at the top of her game in Nomadland, where all of that weaves in and you're just left with a mood, a feeling, an embrace of a lifestyle. There is no wallowing in drama or wallowing in pain. It's kind of really centered on very human moments, very small moments that she considers cinematic. But she's just saying, look, without going all macro, without going all hypercritical about the capitalist structures that have led everyone into this situation, let's just focus on the human moments.
And I think, like, as she's talked about this, like, that's the stepping stone. Like, you can't really start to understand the system and criticize the system before you understand the people it impacts.
Okay, I'm going to try and give out points now as fairly as I can, because, again, I think all of these are incredible in their own way, and I think the way you've argued them is incredible. Anna, I'm going to give you full marks for Promising Young Woman. And these scenes, yes, may not have worked for me specifically in my bias and my taste, but certainly have stuck with me. And they all feel like they're standout scenes, and they do feel like scenes in that film. And then I'm going to give 2 points to Judas and the Black Messiah again for how you put it forward as well, and I think a different perspective to exactly, you know, I look like this, so I don't like feel the same way as personally as obviously you do, and I think that's important. And then Nomadland, 1 point only because it's the last one, but it's incredible. Obviously, this is a roundabout memorable scenes, and you're right, it feels like a collection of moments rather than individual set pieces.
If we were doing memorable shots,
sure,
then I would have won. But I understand.
Yeah. But at the end of that round, Judas and the Black Messiah currently have 5 points, Promising Woman has 4 points, and Nomadland has 3 points. And now it takes us on to the next round, which is cultural impact. And I think we'll go to Judas and the Black Messiah first. What do you think is the cultural impact of Judas and Black Messiah? What do you think it's saying about our culture? What do you think it will do for the future of cinema and whatever else?
I mean, it's tough to say with a movie that's just come out, but I feel like hopefully Shaka King goes on to make a lot more movies. I think the kind of vision he's got needs to be, I mean, me personally, I would love to just see more of what he can do and the kind of performances he can pull out of other great actors. I feel like the story needs to be seen by lots of people. And one thing I do like about this is that it's taken from the perspective of William O'Neill. And I think making him the protagonist of the movie is like such a weird thing to do when you have Fred Hampton in it as well, especially played by Daniel Kaluuya. So I just want to see what everyone goes on to do. You know, Dominique Fishback, I want to see what she does next. I'm just really excited for everyone in the project to do something else and see where they go with it. But it's hard to say about like what it's going to do for cinema culturally ahead of time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be known now as the one that got Daniel Kaluuya the Oscar, which is nice. So he's always going to be known as Academy Award winning Daniel Kaluuya, which is good. But I agree. I'm so excited to see creatively where everyone goes next. In fact, all of these movies have been award hitters in one way or another. Like Emerald Fennell now is obviously going on to do a DC project of some sort, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. And you know, I'm as is Chloe Zhao as well. So I'm kind of loving the fact that there's a long-standing tradition of male indie directors being plucked from their first indie success and going off to do a really big budget movie, whether that's Marvel or DC or anything else. And I'm glad that also female indie directors are getting that chance, and their perspectives are very, very different, and they have very distinct cinematic voices, I think. On Promising Young Women, obviously Emerald's also kind of, you know, not as historic a win as Chloe Zhao for Best Director, but also it's important to know that she picked up the Best Original Screenplay award at the Oscars, and I think it's important for a couple of reasons, not just because she's a woman. The last time a woman picked up a Best Original Screenplay award, I think, was Diablo Cody for Juno. But I think it's because of the genre of the film, because I think it sort of walks the fine line between horror and thriller. But I think it's interesting that a film that's so dark and so controversial and so steeped in tropes and themes that are very much of the horror territory, picking up an award, picking up a lot of awards, but namely Oscars and BAFTAs. And I think, to be honest, Jordan Peele has a lot to thank for that, because he picked up the Best Original Screenplay for Get Out a few years back. And that's also historic for a number of reasons. But I think kind of the traditional allergy that awards bodies have towards horror and thrillers in general is another hurdle to get over. So I'm excited for Emerald playing around in the genre space even more. I do find it fascinating, though, that as much as I love the movie, it's also been one of the ones where I've so enjoyed the conversation around it, where I've read a lot of takedowns and seen a lot of video essays that kind of go against the movie and have extremely valid and very, very fair points that are criticisms of the film. And one of the things that I find, it really rarely happens that a film can be so extremely divisive, yet you welcome the conversation and the division around it, and you feel, yes, I want to hear everyone's point of view on it. It's so fascinating that it triggers people in so many distinct ways, and people feel compelled to talk about it. The fact that a movie like this does not leave anyone indifferent is such a testament to its impact.
Do you think that this is going to open the doors now for not similar exactly in terms of like what it's discussing in the film, like thematically, but in terms of potentially more controversial ideas in terms of like how it's going to be presented in a movie? Do you know what I mean? Like topics that are going to be undertaken in a subversive way. Do you think that's sort of going to open the doors now because it's been so successful?
I think one of the things it's going to do is probably something that didn't quite happen, that Sofia Coppola was also kind of always accused about, where kind of her films look too feminine or too girly.
Sure.
But I think the way that this Promising Young Woman has embraced the millennial aesthetic and the millennial music.
I think that's why like the use of Britney Spears as Toxic has gone down so well, is because all of our people our age have just gone, oh my God.
Yeah, and it's kind of, really embracing the culture. And I think Emerald Fennell has been unapologetic about kind of using a very feminine, very kind of generationally specific aesthetic as well. And I think one of the things that we'll see is perhaps less of in terms of financing and getting films produced, I think there's going to be less of an allergy to a certain type of aesthetic, especially within genre films.
Clarisse, Chloe Zhao.
It won Best Picture. It's the Best Picture. The people said so. The people who vote for the Oscars said it was the best.
And they're
one.
always right.
And Frances McDormand wooed on stage. So
She did.
Talking about cultural impact. Did anyone in your movies woo? I don't think so. I mean, also, I think I just can't. This is what made me so mad about the Oscars. Chloe Zhao winning Best Director is like historic on a level my brain can't process. She's the second woman ever to win Best Director, the first woman of color. She's also the most honored filmmaker of won a single award season. She's won the most awards, period. Partially because she was also the editor and she took on so many
That's
different roles.
what I can't believe I haven't mentioned that. That was what blew my mind with this as well, is that it's clearly hers in every single sense. Like, she was there for she wasn't sat in an edit studio behind an editor. She did it piece by piece herself.
Well, I love that she's only on her third movie and we can already be like, yep, that's a Chloe Zhao movie. Like, I recognize it.
Even the few shots that we've seen from Eternals. Like, that's Chloe Zhao.
You're like, oh, yep.
Oh, look, it's not on a green screen. That's Chloe Zhao.
And I think what's really impressive about her, what I really admired, is her voice is so definitive. Her voice is so unique and so its own that I love that we're not just sitting here being like, oh, she's the next Malik, because she's not. She's the next Chloe Zhao. Like, she's that iconic. And yeah, Eternals, like, this is the year of Chloe Zhao. She's coming, and that movie looks bomb. It looks amazing.
I'm hearing as well that she specifically did say, can I do this on location, please?
And Kevin Feige, his mind was blown. He was like, oh my God, not CGI exists.
We could use locations.
You can go outside?
Well, you can't really anymore.
Usually we just bring like a bit of it in here and do the rest later.
Nomadland is not only historic, I think, already because of that Best Director win is going to go down in history. That even that Best Picture win, I mean, it's not the normal thing that usually picks up Best Picture. It's, as we said, it's very muted. It's semi
not about
documentary. Cinema. Yeah, it's not Mank. And I think combined with this and Moonlight and a few other recent Best Picture winners, it's like, oh, we're really like turning a corner now where the Oscars are actually giving Best Picture to the Best Picture.
2 years in a row.
This is weird and exciting, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you've argued that really well. I'm going to give Nomadland 3 points for that, because I think Chloe Zhao is going to storm it. I think she's going to become our next great director, and I'm so hopeful that Eternals is going to be like such a different way of looking at a Marvel superhero movie.
Outside.
Already,
we've done it.
And then I'm going to give 2 points to Promising Young Woman, because I think you're right. I think it's aesthetically going to open some doors that it was very unashamed of. I think you're right that there's something about its aesthetic that is so bold and different. And then a singular point for the Judas and the Black Messiah, only simply because it was the final one rather than it actually, like, I don't know. I just it's the last one that I was giving points to.
We're fine. We're good, Jack. Don't worry.
Okay, so before we go into the IMDb rating round, everybody is currently neck and neck. Everybody has 6 points each. because I manufactured this. I did this on purpose. Okay, so the final one is the IMDb rating round, where I have no control. So what do people think, top to bottom, it's going to be? What's going to be at the top? What's going to be at the bottom?
Nomadland's going to be first.
You think Nomadland's at top?
Nomadland.
Yeah.
What do you think is at the bottom?
I think Judas and the Black Messiah.
I'm going to have to agree.
Because people are racist.
Yes.
Yeah, because people are horrible. All right, let's find out. If we think that Nomadland's the one to beat, Alexa, tell me the IMDb rating for Nomadland.
Nomadland has an IMDb rating of 7.4 out of 10.
That's really low.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Yeah.
What the hell?
That's lower than I expected it to be. Alexa, tell me the IMDb rating for Promising Young Woman.
The movie Promising Young Woman has an IMDb rating of 7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
7.5. By a hair. Can
so
Judas and the
tense.
Black Messiah beat 7.5?
I don't know. This is giving me more anxiety towards the situation. I feel like I'm coming in at like a 6 now.
Alexa, tell me the IMDb rating for Judas and the Black Messiah.
The movie Judas and the Black Messiah has an IMDb rating of 7.5 out of 10.
So,
Not everyone's racist.
that's what we've learned here today. Okay, so because Promising Young Woman and Judas and the Black Messiah are joint first, I'm going to give Clarisse and Nomadland 2 points instead of 1. That doesn't seem fair just to give you 1 point. So it's 2 points and 3 points each, which means, controversially, that Nomadland has 8 points, but currently Judas and the Black Messiah and Promising Young Woman both have 9 points each. So that brings us to the tiebreaker. So you're both going to have 30 seconds on the clock to argue your point to me, Mr. Bias, who didn't like Promising Young Woman,
You're already setting me up to fail.
as to why
Are you also going to give me 15 seconds instead of 30?
as to why I should pick your film as the best film of the year. And I'll have Clarisse help me if she would like to.
Sure. I mean, I don't know why Nomadland isn't in the conversation
I know.
anymore. But
I
we're
didn't
just
mean to do
gonna-
that. Anna, you're going to go first.
Okay.
30 seconds on the clock. You ready?
Yes.
Alexa, set a timer for 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Starting now.
Okay. Promising Woman's best film of 2021 because it succeeds on every single level. It's the most talked about film of the year. It has an absolutely stunning cast that both subverts and leans into our expectation. It walks a fine line, which is very difficult to walk, between comedy, thriller, and horror. It has an absolutely incredibly telling aesthetic, both musically and visually. It is one of the most, if not the most, millennial films of its time.
Nice summary. Well done. Okay, Joe, are you ready?
Yes.
Alexa, set a timer for 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Starting now.
I think Shaki King is an amazing director and he does an amazing thing with this movie. Daniel Kaluuya, Dominic Fishback, and Lakeith Statham, I think, are the best cast of any movie that we've spoken about today. If you mix in the cinematography and the editing, it just captures something that is so large but also keeps it very intimate as well. I feel like this whole movie is so important and so relevant to today that it should be the best picture of the year. The Fred Hampton story needs to be told.
Clarisse, what are we thinking? You two, don't listen.
It's hard because, like, on arguments basis, I can't choose because, like, they're very different films.
Yeah, this is it.
And both of you argued it so well and
For completely different reasons.
Yeah, both of those films sound absolutely vital. So I don't, but I have a slight preference for one, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm who am I? I'm just a worm, as that character in Labyrinth once said.
I think that because Nomadland won Best Picture and Best Film across the board,
And it just like was the
it
best.
just was, you know, I think
Since we're
that
all agreed
here,
that it was the best movie, it should not win.
I'm happy for the first time on this, for us to just agree on the draw. I'm
This
happy
is a
with the draw.
historic moment as well.
This is a historic moment.
Chaotic. This is as chaotic as the end of the Oscars.
By the power of editing, I hand you the Screen Test Award.
Thank you so much.
And now, Joe, through the power of editing, I hand you the Screen Test Award.
Thanks, Jack.
You're welcome.
Can I please?
Right.
Please?
Both of you can make a speech at the same time and go.
Shaka King, we did it. I'm good. Power to the people.
Thank you to Britney Spears.
Well, yeah, finally someone said it. Okay, so now that we've got that historic moment out of the way, it's time to play Unbox The Plot. It's a very simple game. Here are the rules. In this box, in the form of a few items, I have one of my favourite films of the year, and you have to try and guess what it is based on the clues that I present to you. Then you have to commit your answer to a whiteboard, and if you do commit your answer and you change it, I'll know. But if you guess a film, let's say on item 1, and Clarisse guesses the same film on item 3, that means you win. So the earlier you guess, the better. Make sense?
Perfect.
Then let's unbox the plot. Unbox the plot.
Tenet came out last year,
It did. It did.
so it can't
It
be
can't
that.
be Tenet. The first clue is a paper aeroplane. Silence falls on the guests. Oh, do you have a guess? Are you going to commit a guess on the first clue?
No.
No.
I have a guess,
Okay.
but I'm not committing to it.
Okay. Clarisse is thinking about it as well.
Because I've probably seen it, but my brain is so upset that it's not working.
Second clue is a red baseball hat. Black.
Sorry. Okay, this was one of the things I was going to choose.
I think Clarisse has got it.
I'm
How
just
you feeling?
I'm just terrible at this game.
How are you feeling,
This has
Anna?
thrown me.
Sorry
This
for
is fine,
screaming,
okay.
everyone.
Black.
I just got excited because I know what it is.
Next clue is a little chickie. Little chicky chick. Just gonna check it.
Yeah. Because I know it. This is very good.
Thank you very much. Put a lot of thought into this one.
Oh, this has confused me.
Okay. And the final. So they're not the right. They are seeds, but they're not the right seeds. But some seeds in here.
No. No. Oh.
Whoops. Okay. Clarisse, you're the one who guessed first. What do you think it is? Minari. Of course it is. Anna, did you get it?
No, I was thinking of something
What
entirely
did you
different.
think it was going to be? What was in your head?
This makes absolutely no sense, but I was thinking of that weird duckling flying movie from the 90s with Anna Paquin.
That didn't come out this year.
What the
Where did your brain go?
One.
So that means for the first time in our history, there's two winners. Nomadland won all the Oscars, and Judas and the Black Messiah and Promising Young Woman won here. So do you agree with the result? Let us know in the comments. And if you're searching for some of the best movies of the year so far, then look no further than Prime Video, because they have some standouts for whatever mood that you're in, such as the Oscar-nominated film One Night in Miami, crime thriller I Care a Lot, which I loved, and the long-awaited Eddie Murphy sequel Coming to America. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us on this episode.
Pleasure.
And I hope to have you back soon. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And, well, that's it. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.